Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 36. We're starting on the bottom of 35b with the Mishnah. Last couple lines there on 35b. The Mishnah, Shachato al menas lahaniach es damo, o emor lemocho letzion lachutz, Rabbi Yehuda posel chachomim machshirin. Al menas iten al gabe hakebesh, שלא כנגד היסוד ליתן את הניתונים למעלון למטו ואת הניתונים למטו למעלון ואת הניתונים. Turning now to 36a on the top. בפנים, בחוץ, או ואת הניתונים בחוץ, בפנים שיאכלו טמאים, שיקרבו טמאים, שיאכלו הרעילים, ושיגרבו הרעילים לשבת עצמוס הפסח, לאכול ממנו נא, ולערב דם ודם פסול כשר. Okay, that is the first few lines of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, if one slaughters the animal in order to leave its blood or its sacrificial portions for the next day, or to remove them outside the designated area, but not in order to sacrifice them the next day, Rabbi Yehuda deems the offering unfit, and the rabbis deem it fit. In the case of one who slaughters the animal in order to place the blood upon the ramp or on the wall of the altar that is not opposite the base of the altar, or in order to place the blood that is to be placed above the red line, below the red line, or to place the blood that is to be placed below the red line, above the red line, or the blood that is to be placed, now on top of 36a, inside the sanctuary, outside the sanctuary, or the blood that is to be placed outside the sanctuary, inside the sanctuary, and likewise. If you slaughter the animal with the intent that ritually impure people will partake of it, or that ritually impure people will sacrifice it, or that uncircumcised people will partake of it, or that uncircumcised people will sacrifice it, and likewise, with regard to the paschal offering, if he had intent during the slaughter to break the bones of the paschal offering, or to eat from the meat of the paschal offering partially roasted, or to mix the blood of an offering with the blood of unfit offerings, in all these cases, although he intended to perform one of these prohibited acts, some of which would render the offering unfit, the offering is fit. Continuing on, she'ein machshava poseles ela b'chutz lizmano b'chutz limkomo ve'apesach ve'achatas she'olishma. The reason is that intent does not render the offering unfit, except in cases of intent to eat or to burn the offering beyond its designated time and outside its designated area, and in addition the paschal offering and the sin offering are disqualified by intent to sacrifice them not for their sake. And now the Gemara, the Talmud says, my taima, Rabbi Yehuda, the Gemara asks, what is the reasoning of Rabbi Yehuda? Amar Rabbi Elazar, Trei Kroi Kesiv ben Oison, Kesiv Echad Omer, Lo Hiti O Totiru Men Avoikel, because the Echad Omer Lo Yeniach Men Avoikel. The Gemara asks, what is the reasoning of Rabbi Yehuda, who deemed the offering unfit if there was intent to leave it over until the next day or to take it out of its designated area? Rabbi Elazar said there are two verses that are written with regard to notar. One verse states, you shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remains of it until the morning you shall burn with fire. Exodus 12:10. And one verse states, he shall not leave any of it until the morning. Leviticus 7:15. If the additional verse is not necessary for the matter of the prohibition against leaving it overnight, which is already mentioned by the verse, apply it to the matter of intent of leaving it overnight, which would therefore be prohibited as well. The Rabbi Yehuda, Hi Kodoki Hudasa. Hi Mibaile Nichiditanya. ובשר זבח תודת שלמיו. למדנו בתודה שנחרת ליום ולילה. The Gemara asks, but according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, does this verse come to teach this idea? This verse is necessary for him to derive that which is taught in a Braita. The verse states, and the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offerings for thanksgiving shall be eaten on the day of his offering. He shall not leave any of it until the morning. Leviticus 7:15. From the words, and the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offerings for thanksgiving, as we learned with regard to a thanks offering, that it is eaten for a day and a night. Chalifin v'vladois t'murois minayan Talmud lo imo v'sar chatas v'yosha minayin Talmud lo mag zevach. With regard to animals exchanged for thanks offerings, and the offspring of thanks offerings, and the substitutes of thanks offerings, from where is it derived? They too are eaten for only a day and a night. The verse states in the flesh, wasar, and the additional and includes them. With regard to a sin offering and a guilt offering, from where is it derived that they are eaten for only a day and a night? The verse states sacrifice to include other types of offerings. Uminayin larabois shalmi nozir shalmi pesach Talmud lama shalamav lach metoda chalot urekikim shebenozir minayin Talmud lama korbano kulam koryani bahen lo yiniach. The Braita continues, and from where is it derived to include the peace offering of a Nazarite, meaning the ram that a Nazarite brings at the close of his term of Nazariteship, and the peace offering of Passover? The verse therefore states his peace offerings in the plural. With regard to the loaves of the thanks offering and the loaves and wafers that are part of the offering brought by a Nazarite, from where is it derived that they are eaten for only a day and a night? The verse states his offering. With regard to all of them, I will read the phrase, he shall not leave any of it until the morning, as being applicable. Evidently, this verse is necessary to teach numerous halachot concerning the allotted time to partake of offerings. Imken, lema kra lo totiru, mai lo hiniach, im eno inyan haniach, teneo inyan lemachshavas inuach. The Gemara answers, if so, let the verse state, and you shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, as stated in the other verse. What is indicated by the verse, he shall not? What is indicated by the phrase, he shall not leave any of it? If it is not necessary for the matter of the prohibition against leaving it overnight, apply it to the matter of intent to leave it overnight. The Gemara now questions the source cited by Rabbi Elazar. This works out well to explain the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda with regard to one who had intent to leave the sacrificial portions overnight, but with regard to disqualifying the offering due to one who had intent to remove them from the temple. What can be said to explain the source of Rabbi Yehuda, as it cannot be derived from these verses? Time of Yehuda, so Tanya Amar Lahem Rabbi Yehuda, I atem moidim she'im hinicho lemachol shehu pasul af chishev lanicho lemachal pasul. Ela time of Rabbi Yehuda so and furthermore, the statement of Rabbi Elazar can be questioned, as the rationale of Rabbi Yehuda is based on logical reasoning and is not derived from a verse. This is as is taught in the Braita. Rabbi Yehuda said to the rabbis, "Do you not concede that if he left it over until the next day, that it is disqualified? So too, if he intended to leave it over until the next day, it is disqualified." Clearly, Rabbi Yehuda bases his opinion on logical reasoning, as he equates intent with action. The Gemara asks, rather, is the rationale of Rabbi Yehuda based on logical reasoning and not derived from the verse? But if so, Rabbi Yehuda should also disagree with regard to all of the other cases in the Mishnah due to the same reasoning. The Gemara rejects this regard to which case should Rabbi Yehuda disagree? Should he disagree with regard to one who slaughters the offering with intent to break the bones of the paschal offering, or with intent to partake of the paschal offering while it is partially roasted? Even had he actually realized such intent, would the offering itself thereby be disqualified? It presumably would not, as the presenting of the blood affects acceptance. Likewise, if a rite was performed on the condition that ritually impure individuals will partake of it, or that ritually impure individuals will sacrifice it, meaning burn the sacrificial portions on the altar, would the offering itself be disqualified if such actions occurred? Likewise, if it was done with the intent that uncircumcised individuals will partake of it, or that uncircumcised individuals will sacrifice it, would the offering itself be disqualified if this occurred? The Gemara presents another version of this question. Is it in his power to execute these actions that are contingent upon the will of others? לערב דמם ודם פסולים, רבי יהודה לטמא דאמר אין דם מבטל דם, ליתן הניתנים למעלה ולמטה למטה למעלה. רבי יהודה לטמא דאמר שלא למקום ענמי, with regard to a case where one had intent to mix their blood with the blood of unfit offerings, where Rabbi Yehuda also does not agree with the ruling of the Mishnah that the offering is valid, he confirms his line of reasoning, as he says, blood does not nullify blood. Therefore, even if one would actually mix the two types of blood, it would not be disqualified. Likewise, in cases where one had intent to place the blood, that is, to be placed above the red line, below the red line, or those that are to be placed below the red line, above the red line, Rabbi Yehuda conforms to his line of reasoning, as he says, blood that was not placed in its proper place on the altar is also considered to be placed in its proper place, and it affects acceptance of the offering. The Gemara suggests let him disagree with regard to a case of blood that is to be placed inside the sanctuary that was placed outside, and blood that is to be placed outside the sanctuary that was placed inside, as the verse explicitly states that an external sin offering whose blood was sprinkled inside is disqualified. See Leviticus 6:23. The Gemara explains, Yehuda holds that in order to disqualify an offering with the intent to perform a rite outside its designated area, we require that the intended place have threefold functionality, meaning for the presenting of the blood, for the eating of the meat, and for the burning of the sacrificial portions on the altar, which is true only of the area outside the temple courtyard, which was valid for these three activities during an era in which it was permitted to sacrifice offerings on private altars. Therefore, intent to present the blood at the sanctuary, which lacks these three elements, does not disqualify the offering, as the meat and sacrificial portions are never eaten or burned there. ומאיסתא רבי יהודה היסורי ותניא רבי יהודה אומר דבר רע, ריבו כאן חטס ששחטה בדרום וחטס שנכנס דמה לפנים פסולה. The Gemara asks, and does Rabbi Yehuda accept this reasoning that it must be a place of threefold functionality? But isn't it taught in Braita? Rabbi Yehuda says, the verse states, "You shall not sacrifice to the Lord your God an ox or a sheep that has a blemish, even any evil thing." Deuteronomy 17, verse 1. The verse included here a sin offering that one slaughtered in the south and not on the northern side of the temple courtyard as required, and likewise a sin offering whose blood entered inside, meaning it was slaughtered with the intent that its blood will be brought inside the sanctuary, that they are disqualified. This indicates that an offering slaughtered with improper intent with regard to a place that lacks threefold functionality nevertheless renders the offering not valid. Unless Rabbi Yehuda Shlishi V'Tzanan Rabbi Yehuda Yichnis B'Shoigi Kosher B'Mezid Pasul the Kamelan B'Shekiper. The Gemara responds, and does Rabbi Yehuda not accept the requirement of a place of three functions? But didn't we learn in a Mishnah A to A that Rabbi Yehuda said if he brought the blood into the sanctuary unwittingly, the blood remains fit for presenting, from which it may be inferred, but if he brought it intentionally, it is unfit. And we maintain that Rabbi Yehuda deems it unfit only where one actually effected atonement, meaning he presented the blood on the inner altar. Hashda u'mahasam ayla, in brackets it says the ayole, ayale. I kiper in, ilo kiper la, hachadecha shivcha Now it stands to reason that if there where one actually brought the blood inside, only if he effected atonement, yes, it is unfit. But if he did not effect atonement, it is not unfit. Then here, where he merely thought to bring it inside all the more, so it is not clear. Is it not clear that it should be valid? The Gemara answers there are two Tanaim, and they disagree with regard to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda concerning a place with threefold functionality. The Gemara asks, and does Rabbi Yehuda hold that with regard to a sin offering that one slaughtered in the south, turning now to 36b, that the slaughter would be liable to receive lashes? Okay, this is a big daf. So you know what? We're going to call it a daf. We're going to call it an amud and continue with 36b after the break.